Welcome to Catholic Chicago. This is the Black Catholic Initiative, bringing you the experiences, perspectives, and insights of Black Catholics of the Archdiocese of Chicago, from north to west and east to south. I am Deacon Jim Norman, Vicar for Deacons of the Archdiocese of Chicago, also humbled to serve at Our Lady of Sorrows Basilica on the west side. Here we discuss what's happening, who and what is having an impact in the Black Catholic community, and importantly, how we move forward in faith that is uniquely Catholic and authentically Black. With me today, I'm delighted to have Deacon Herbert Johnson, the new director for the St. Thomas More Mission. Hi, Deacon, how are you?
I am well, Deacon Jim. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being with us. We are delighted to have you with us as you assume your new responsibilities. I want to give the audience an opportunity to get to know you a little bit better. And you've got a rich professional history and background, as well as you're currently serving as a deacon in the Archdiocese of Chicago. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, Jim, I'm a lifelong Chicagoan, a Southsider at heart, at best. I'm a graduate of Quigley Preparatory Seminary South, DePaul University, and Northern Illinois University. I'm a veteran of the United States Navy, and I'm married to my lovely wife, Tina, and tomorrow actually is our 20th wedding anniversary.
Well, congratulations.
Well, thank you. I have 3 adult children and 6 lovely grandchildren.
Beautiful, beautiful.
I'm recently retired from the state of Illinois in the Department of Central Management Services. I worked in the Thompson Center and the Bureau of Personnel. I've got a vast experience in management and leadership and in finance. I retired in 2022. And I was ordained to the permanent diaconate for the Archdiocese of Chicago in 2016.
Okay. And how long did you work for the state of Illinois? You may have said that.
I worked for the state for 18 years.
18 years. Okay.
I worked for Allstate for 5 years, for CNA for about 3 years, for Rush Presbyterian, all these positions in management and leadership services. So really, as I started to add up the years towards my retirement, I had over 30 years of management experience in various disciplines.
Okay. And you said then you retired in 2022. You had a little time to rest.
Yes.
And then this opportunity comes up as director for St. Thomas More Mission. Tell us a little bit. Before I go there, tell us though, you're a deacon in the Archdiocese of Chicago, as you said. Tell us a little bit about your parish.
So my current assignment is at St. Catherine Drexel Parish. It's the formerly St. Albee. I was part of the Renew My Church team for the grouping of St. Albee, St. Felicita, and St. Joachim back in 2018. I served, prior to accepting this position, I was a member of the weekly Bible study team. And my wife and I were facilitators for the marriage enrichment ministry. And currently, in addition to my service at the Word and at the Cup, I serve on the parish finance committee, the leadership committee, and I assist with the OCIA.
Okay. So you have been very busy, even as a deacon prior to this opportunity coming up, having gone through Renew My Church with the merger of 3 parishes into one, now forming St. Catherine Drexel. Just so the audience gets a sense of St. Catherine Drexel, about how many families, parishioners at St. Catherine Drexel?
I would say families, maybe 250 to 500.
Okay.
And then within the family, if you say an average family size is 3, 4, 5 people, then, multiply that. Obviously, we need to get more of the family members in regular attendance, but I would say about 250 to 300.
Okay. And then as I had jumped ahead before, you retired in 2022, if I recall you saying.
That's correct.
And then this opportunity comes up, Mission Director for St. Thomas More Mission. So tell us about this new role.
Well, it's interesting, Jim, because when I retired, I knew that my work wasn't done, but I just didn't want to take and jump into anything. And I always said that if I felt led by God, then it would be something that I would do. So this particular opportunity presented itself to me, and I prayed on it. I had discernment, my wife and we agreed that this is something that we should pursue.
Okay.
So as mission director, my role really is to effectuate the tenets of the decree set forth for St. Thomas More Mission in Renew My Church. St. Thomas More Mission grew out of the grouping of St. Thomas More, St. Bede, and St. Denis, where St. Thomas More was established for a renewed commitment to the African American and African diaspora of the Wrightwood and Ashburn community. So I feel that my goal here is to develop this campus as a spiritual resource center committed to uplifting and celebrating the diversity within the community.
Wonderful. And we've got running now showing the mission statement, and I think there's also a welcome statement there as well. Now, you've been in your role how long, Deacon?
I've been with Jim actually 3 weeks.
3 weeks.
3 weeks on a full-time basis. There was some transition period during the month of May, but assuming the helm beginning the month of June.
Okay. Now, you are the first deacon. The previous directors have been priests. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And now, you mentioned the location, Wrightwood and Ashburn area. These are areas and communities that you're very familiar with.
Without a doubt. As I mentioned earlier, I graduated from Quigley South. We're located on 81st in California. Quigley, which is now St. Rita, is on 78 and Western.
Okay.
So, you know, as a Southsider, I traveled from Stony Island to Western every day during my high school career.
Okay. And I was going to ask, you know, in those, you know, obviously there was some prep time before you officially took the role, but you've been in the role now for 3 weeks. What did you learn about St. Thomas More Mission that you'd like to share with the audience?
Really,
or have you learned?
I had not been here, and I didn't realize how beautiful this campus was. I didn't realize, even though it was written, how stable this community is and how diverse it is. And it was such a privilege once I came on campus to look at the potential for this campus, because really this particular campus of St. Thomas More Mission is a cornerstone for this particular area.
You had mentioned the campus. You know, you hadn't been familiar with the campus. Would you describe for our audience what, because you mentioned it as being a spiritual resource center for the communities of Wrightwood, Ashburn, for those of African American descent and the African diaspora. Am I saying that right? Diaspora. Could you describe what consists of the campus? What does the campus look like? What buildings are there? What facilities are there that could be used?
Sure. So the campus has a convent that has 13 sleeping quarters. It has a full kitchen in the convent. It also has a chapel. as well as meeting rooms. So ideally, this is a place for overnight retreats or even one-day retreats where people can come, reflect, and commit to giving themselves to the experience. Additionally, there is a garden in between the mission center, which is the convent, as well as a garden on the other side of the mission center, where people can go out and enjoy and walk the grounds. Our rectory, where our offices are, has another 5 suites that can be used again for retreats. We have a hall, our downland hall, which is our lower level. It can comfortably seat over 500 people.
Wow.
We've got a full and working kitchen in that area as well. We have another room, which is called the Quigley Room, that can accommodate 100 to 150 people as well there. We have probably, if not the largest, one of the largest parking lots within the Archdiocese. So the potential for community engagement, for spiritual enrichment is endless in my estimation.
That's wonderful. I mean, outstanding space, so clearly spaces for retreats, spaces for meetings, spaces for the community to come and convene and gather. I was thinking, as we think about the space, and I know we flashed up just a little bit, in terms of staff, what staff is supporting you there as mission director?
Currently, we have a receptionist, an administrative assistant, and a maintenance director. And these folks were here when I got here, and they're great. They are supportive of the mission, and they understand what our challenges are, as well as what opportunities are present here.
Okay. And we'll do this now, and we'll do it again. I think if we expand on that a little bit, if someone wanted to reach out to the mission for a tour or to discuss a possible event, again, we'll put up the location, and I think the contact information is there on the website. They could see that, but very quickly, Deacon, what's the number and email address that they can use to contact the mission?
So they can contact the mission. Our phone number is 773-436-4444.
Thank you. And email address?
And the email address, and that, I would tell you what, use my email address, which is hjohnson@archchicago.org. Okay. Because we're working on the mission's email address so that it can be accessible. We're working through some of the IT stuff on that. So I would say initially use my email address as well as that mission phone number. And for folks that are interested in taking a tour, seeing what's available, and we would be accommodating.
Okay. And you also have, just to note, there is church space there. How many? Oh, yeah. What's the seating capacity of the church?
The actual sanctuary can probably seat 1,200.
Okay.
I know at the last Mass that the last regularly scheduled Mass, and I have to emphasize regularly scheduled because there's a misnomer that there will never be another Mass here, and that's not true. There were over 1,000 people here.
Wonderful.
That came to celebrate the last regularly scheduled Mass on May 25th.
Okay. And where does the mission fit? You talked about Renew My Church. Is it a part of or St. Bede, St. Denis? Is that the parish that it resides?
It is.
Okay.
Canonically, a mission can't stand on its own. It has to be associated with a parish. So from the grouping of St. Bede, St. Denis, and St. Thomas More, St. Bede, St. Denis became the parish, and St. Thomas More became the mission under that umbrella.
Okay. So certainly a level of collaboration between you and the pastor and staff at St. Bede, St. Denis as the mission goes forward.
And they are, Father Alejandro and the staff over there are fully supportive of what we're doing and what our goals are for St. Thomas More mission.
I know it's early, only 3 weeks in, but you bring extensive background, experience, and vision and perspective. I would ask a couple of questions. The first is your hopes and dreams as you think about the next 2 to 3 years for St. Thomas More mission. And then the second question, I'll just put that out there now for you to come back to, is, and the things that you've been doing over the last 3 weeks that have given you renewed hope and renewed energy about your role and the mission itself.
Definitely. So first question first, I envision St. Thomas More mission as being one of the cornerstones of this community, with programmatic activities that are culturally sensitive and spiritually enriching. I can see this, and I see it now as being a welcoming and inviting campus that reaches out into the community and uplifts all who partake in our various activities. We have a food pantry currently. I could see us expanding that food pantry and expanding our programmatic activities to service the needs of our community. I want folks to think of and to see St. Thomas More mission as a desired destination and a great source for outreach and evangelization.
Deacon, I wanted to just capture a couple of things you said there in that statement. One is, we know that the mission is African descent, the African diaspora, but we recognize that in Wrightwood and Ashburn, it's a diverse community, Anglo, African American, and I believe, emerging Hispanic.
Correct.
And is the mission's focus to serve the entire community and be welcoming to the entire community?
Without a doubt.
Okay.
Without a doubt. I mean, we're going to be, again, focused on living up to the tenets of the decree, not to the exclusion of any particular or specific group. We want to bring everybody. The tent is big enough to bring everyone in, and all are welcome if we're pulling on the same side of the rope.
Okay. The question I had for you mentioned the food pantry. What are the days and hours of operation of your food pantry?
The food pantry is operated by Pro Labore Day, and it operates on Saturday morning. It's a drive-through food pantry from 8:30 till either the food is gone or till the last cars, and that usually is about 10 o'clock, maybe 10:30. Registration is not required. The cars will pull into our parking lot, which is located, the entrance is off of 81st, right off of Mozart. And again, all are welcome. There's no registration required. What we're looking to do, as well as the Pro Labore Day, is to fill a need.
Currently, how many people are served by the food pantry?
That's a tough one because, again, by it being a drive-through, there could be a number of families. I mean, I've witnessed in the food pantry in operation, and there may be 2 or 3 people in a particular vehicle, but it may be 3 or 4 families that are being served.
Okay.
So I could tell you from the number of families, I would say 60 maybe.
Okay.
You know, if you've got 20 vehicles and 3 families in each vehicle, then you're talking about 60 families, and within that family, if the average family is 2 or 3 people, then maybe we're talking 120, 180 people.
All right. We'll come back to that second question now. And in these first 3 weeks, where has your time and attention gone? And if there's been anything along the way that's re-energized you, confirmed your hope and dreams for the mission?
Well, one of the things that initially I wanted to do was to do outreach to the community leaders, to try to get activities within the mission, to start to schedule events and programs. So to that end, on yesterday, I met with the Alderman Derek Curtis of the 18th Ward, and he was excited to understand that the mission is thriving, because there's a lot of misleading information out there that St. Thomas More is closed, which it's not. The only thing that has changed is that the regularly scheduled masses have ended. So we are working on bringing some community events here. I've been working with my own parish, St. Catherine Drexel, and on our website now you can see that there is a women's Bible study prayer vigil scheduled for August, I believe it is, and as well as a women's Emmaus retreat in October, and then in November, or it's either October or November, I've got the dates maybe backwards, the domestic violence outreach ministry for the Archdiocese is going to have their program, the presentation, and their walk here at St. Thomas More, with Sheriff Tom Dart as the keynote speaker.
Wonderful.
So I'm excited that we're going to be once again hosting events for the community, so that the folks within the community can see that we are thriving. We've got a charter school that's right next to us. We've had the kindergarten graduation that was here, and it's a thriving CICS school. They had 60 kids in kindergarten.
Wow.
Over 300 people came to support those children.
Wow.
So we've got activities that we're going to be collaborating with the school during the school year.
Can you share with us, are there other, we'll call them targeted partners for support and collaboration that you'll be engaging over the coming months and weeks?
Well, first and foremost, I'm looking to partner and collaborate with the Black Catholic Initiative to see what type of activities that we can collaborate on and bring to the mission. The Totem Spirituality Project, looking forward to working with them, as well as the Black and Hispanics deacons to get my fellow brothers on board, and again, to see this beautiful campus and what types of programs that we can work on together to bring to the community, as well as the civic leadership. And I mentioned that I met with the alderman, and we're looking to reach out to other faith leaders within the community, so that this is not necessarily just a Catholic initiative, even though we are Catholic, but we want to be ecumenical in our evangelization.
Okay. And speaking of that, the evangelization, will there be any effort, events hosted by St. Thomas More that move towards greater evangelization and vitality for the neighboring and surrounding parishes, or the Archdiocese of Chicago in general?
Down the road, that's a plan.
Okay.
Without a doubt. Again, with so much misleading and inaccurate information, I think it's important for us to first let folks know that we're here. We're open for business. We are looking to collaborate, as well as we're looking to bring evangelization and outreach to this community.
Deacon, you mentioned that for the second time, the notion of misinformation. And so let me just try to capture, and you correct me where I may be wrong in my understanding. There was a decree that as St. Bede, St. Denis, St. Thomas More, the parishes came together, following decisions and discernment, the engagement of parishioners from all of those sites, as well as representatives from the Archdiocese of Chicago. They made a recommendation to the Cardinal. From that recommendation, St. Thomas More, the parish, closed. The mission was created with this focus on those of African American descent to come and a broader serving of the community as a mission under St. Bede and St. Denis Parish. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
That is correct.
What you mentioned once or twice since we've been here discussing this, the mission, is that regularly scheduled masses are not happening at St. Thomas More Mission.
Correct.
St. Thomas More Mission as a spiritual resource center is still open and all are welcome. Is that correct?
Has always been.
Okay.
That is absolutely correct. But I think that the fact that when regularly scheduled masses were ended, the word or the buzz on the street, if you will, was that the St. Thomas More Mission was closed.
Okay.
And that could be so far from the truth that it's amazing.
So you've identified, I mean, there's a food pantry you're in partnership with, and that's every Saturday. Right now you're serving, maybe 60 families or so. You're hosting other parishes at your site, providing space and resources for the spiritual development, retreats, spiritual reflection. You're hosting larger, what I'll call community events. You mentioned the Sheriff Tom Dart event that's coming up. And that's going to be a very broad audience. You've met with the aldermen and now looking to reach out to faith leaders of different faiths in the community for ecumenical work that could be on behalf of the community, Wrightwood and Ashburn. So there's a lot going on.
Correct.
Masses are still available, St. Bede, St. Denis, St. Sabina, name where those masses are. But yours is uniquely a mission of outreach.
Correct.
Okay.
And not to say that there's never going to be another mass here at St. Thomas More, because we have a beautiful sanctuary. It's an outstanding place for a revival where you bring 4 or 5 parish communities together, because we have the space to accommodate that. A mass could be part of that revival.
Yeah, wonderful. I guess as we prepare to close, I hope that our listeners and those that are watching are saying, gee, how can I learn more? Obviously, they can visit the website. They can either call or email you for that. But are there other ways that they could support the mission?
Well, I always ask people first and foremost to pray for us, and for our success. And then I would want people to consider us as a resource center and a venue for your next spiritual gathering. And to share with your friends and your constituencies and your congregations that we are not closed here at St. Thomas More Mission. We have only just begun.
Okay. Well, Deacon, thank you for your time. Thank you for saying yes. Thank you for coming out of retirement. Although you failed at retirement, it is a great success for the Archdiocese of Chicago having you serve as the director of the mission of St. Thomas More. You're off to a fantastic start with events planned almost through October at this point, and I'm sure more coming, hopefully as a result of listeners and watchers here and the other things that you're doing in community. But thank you so much. We will certainly pray for you and support your efforts as you move the vision of St. Thomas More mission forward. God bless you again. Thank you for your time.
And God bless you and your ministry as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome.